Welcome to Castle Paint. Today we're going to be painting some Mandalorians. Here we're going to do some Mandalorians from Atomic Mass Games' Star Wars Shatterpoint. Let's start the process by talking about the light sources that will define these minis. They're going to be on the tabletop, so we can expect them to be hit from their fighting angle. In the case of the mini here, where they're pointing their gun. However, these guys also have sick-ass jetpacks. And so in the case of this mini, the jetpack will also be causing light to hit the bottom of the model. We can ignore this light source for most of the highlights, as we instead treat it as a source light for a reddish-orangish glow later. With all that in mind, let's base coat the mini. Primed first with Citadel Grey Sear, if you want to know. The cloth gets Vallejo Model Color Dark Grey. I use a big brush and I'm a bit messy here, but that's fine, as I'm going to clean up everything as I go. The blue armor gets Vallejo Model Color Prussian Blue. You'll see on this man, I wanted him to have more blue than the box art. I don't want to get him mixed up with Jango Fett when I paint him later. The metallics get Vallejo Metal Color Gunmetal Grey. Smoky Smoke gets Citadel Corn Red. Yes, we're going red here. More explanation for this later. The gun casing and the helmet visors get Vallejo Model Color Black. For the lever straps, I add Vallejo Model Color Burnt Umber. And finally, any bit we want to glow gets a base of Vallejo Model Color White Grey. With these colors added, I go back and do some cleanup, just to make sure each section is the right color. The base colors are down, so it's almost ready for the tabletop. Let's do the base itself, and then it can be sent to the battlefield. For the base, we will use my Shatterpoint base recipe. Anything that is sandy gets a 50-50 mix of Vallejo Model Color Red Leather and Citadel Baylor Brown. Anything that is building-y gets a base of Vallejo Model Color Neutral Grey. I then paint in the shadows. The shadows of the sand is red leather mixed with some dark blue grey, watered down a bit more than normal to run into the recesses of it. For the grey, I use watered down Vallejo Model Color Dark Blue Grey. If I get some shadow color in the wrong place here, it's fine because I can just tidy up before moving on. Now for the highlights, I'll go over dry brush. On the sand, I use Baylor Brown mixed with a bit of Ice Yellow. And for the grey, I'll use Vallejo Model Color Medium Sea Grey. Here we have 3 minis that you could game with, a simple black rim, and we could call it a day. However, I want to push it just a bit further. Also, the red smoke, pure red smoke, looks a little bit odd. I want to bring up my midtones, and I'm going to go back to the light sources we thought about at the beginning. I only want to apply this layer on an area that will be hit with the light. This saves time, adds realism, and also makes it look a bit more dynamic. If you want the normal fully illuminated style, you can just hit all the areas with the midtone color. For the blue, I mix Vallejo Prussian Blue with some Vallejo White Grey to make it a little bit lighter. If you don't want to mix here, you can find alternative paints, but with enough mixing practice, you'll find getting the colors to match becomes easier. With the blue done, I get Vallejo Metal Color Duralumium, I'm sure that's right, and apply it to all the metallic areas, again thinking about what would get hit from our light source. For the cloth, I take the base Vallejo Dark Grey and mixing some Vallejo Neutral Grey, applying this to all the raised areas, thinking about how the shadows would pool in the recesses of the fabric. With the small black bits, I mix in some Vallejo Dark Blue Grey and a tiny touch of Prussian Blue to our black, to have a very, very dark colour, but with a tinge of blue. When I apply this to the gun casing and other black bits, I thin it down a lot, as we want the sections to read as the shadow colour, black, when finished. Now we have to add the midtones to our smoke. It might have seemed odd using red as a base, but that's to give it kind of like a combustion, glowy feel. I take Vallejo Neutral Grey and mix with a small amount of Citadel Baylor Brown. I add some water to make it a bit more of a watery consistency, and I add it to all the sections of the smoke, leaving the recesses looking red and glowy. Here it is worth going over things a few times to get a nice consistent coat. To do this, I mix Vallejo Red Leather with Burnt Umber, trying to make the paint strokes scratchy to provide some texture. With these midtones done, we're a step closer to the tabletop. Again, black rim, all good, but I want to add a highlight. At least one highlight should go on every layer, just to give it that little something extra, a little bit more. Starting with the metallics, I take Vallejo Metal Color Aluminium. Here I'm doing some spot highlights and edge highlights, trying to think of which edges would catch the light, and where there is not an edge, trying to make sure the spot or volumetric highlight seems not too stark against the previous layer. For the blue armor, I take Vallejo Prussian Blue and mix in more Vallejo White Grey to make it even brighter than the tone we used before, and then I hit all the edges. Here it's easier, as the armor plates often have a nice crisp edge for me to twist the angle and get a good line. For the smoke of the jetpack, I take my previous mixture and add some Vallejo Model Color Ice Yellow to the mix. This then gets placed on the smoky volumes that reach towards our light source. Again, we want to apply a few thin layers until the effect is consistent. With the black, I'm going to do two highlights. First, I take Vallejo Dark Blue Grey and mix it with some Vallejo Prussian Blue for the edge highlight. Finally, add a lot of white grey to this mix to make it a super bright colour, and this gets placed as a very small dot on only the very edges of the black. Now we have some really good minis, so let's add some final touches. To start on our upgraded fire for the jetpack, let's add some Vallejo White Grey. For the jetpack smoke, I take Vallejo Black and dry brush it where the fire meets the top of the smoke. This is to give it kind of a combustion feel. To make the bottom of the jetpack look like fire, I take some Citadel Casandora Yellow and apply it over the flames coming out of the jetpack, over the white base coat we applied earlier. This is a quick trick to make it look a little bit like fire. I also add it to some of the metallic bits of the jetpack that would be hit by light from the flames. Oh, and don't forget to add that wash over the glowy buttons. To finish off the fire, I take some Vallejo Model Color Clear Orange and apply stripes. I probably should have looked at fire references, like is the yellow on the inside or the outside? Why do I not know what fire looks like? For some basic OSL, I take that same clear orange, thin it down and apply it to the underside of the mini where the light from the jetpack flames would hit. I then use the wash Casandora Yellow from before to hit where the light would be a little bit weaker. A few coats here will likely be needed to sell the effect. For the blue, I take a mix of 50-50 Prussian Blue and White Grey to make a final edge highlight colour. This then gets applied to all the blue edges of the armour, again thinking about our light direction. For the leather, I take a mix from before and add a tad of ice yellow and throw some scratches over everything. Finally, if we're doing this for Bo Katan, then her helmet has some cool night owl details. I base this with Vallejo Medium Sea Grey and then add my bright blue mixture into the pattern's recesses. You can see I got a lot on the grey, but then I just went over it again, making sure it was clean. Finally, for the helmet, I highlight with Vallejo White Grey. That's it, 3 finished minis. Suppose you want to see what the final result is, yeah? Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoy seeing it come to life. Stay tuned for more, and if you want to delve deeper into what we're doing, head over to castlepaint.com.